Okay. Okay, we are live now.
All right, it's a little after 7. I will call the June 17th, 2021 meeting to order. Also, I'll announce that Amy Phillips and Carrie will not be here initially. Hopefully they will join us later. I would like to congratulate Michelle, Jury, and Carrie for their reappointment on Monday night for another 3-year term. We're delighted to see that. And that's probably the shortest period of time between nomination and appointment that I've ever heard of. So congratulations to you three and to the rest of us. I'd like to welcome everyone. Do we have a motion to come out of closed session?
I move that the school board, having been in closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of closed session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Do we have any motions from our closed session?
I move that we accept the personnel agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Excuse me, Mr. Holt, do we need to
Do the certification.
certify these 2.4?
2 point what?
2.4.
Okay. Do we have certification of our closed session?
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies. And 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. I believe we do have a motion and a second to approve the personnel agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Jerry, thank you for bringing that up. We have a flag. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation, under God,
God.
indivisible,
indivisible,
With
with liberty
and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Roll call. Tammy Moore,
Robert Holt,
present.
Amy Phillips, Tanya Smith,
Present.
Marshall Williams,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Shelton,
Present.
Jerry McCrary,
Present.
Carrie Johnson.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We have no citizens' time, so we'll move to our consent agenda. Item 3.1, robotics trailer donation. I guess that's you, Mr. Ryder.
Yes, thank you. This is actually double donation. This is a donation into our division and a donation out of our division. The Robotics Club, we actually received a trailer a few years ago from someone, and they had donated it to our Robotics Club. But over the years, it's gotten we've gotten a lot more equipment to transport. So they got together, and the Hickory High School Robotics Foundation said that they would donate their larger trailer to us if we donated our smaller trailer to another robotics club that's in need. So what we're asking for is the recommendation is to receive, approve the donation, the receipt from the Hickory High School Robotics Foundation, and approval to donate our trailer to an as yet named school division. We haven't figured out who would be able to take our trailer.
Right.
None of these have a cash value.
We were talking about that today, how wonderful it is that robotics teams are so competitive, but here's one that's donating some equipment to us and asking us to do the same to another group. So that's a terrific
Yeah.
sportsmanship kind of a thing. So do we have a motion to approve the receipt of the free donated trailer from Hickory High School Robotics Foundation and approve donating our old robotics trailer to a yet unnamed club in need?
Awesome.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. You're still up with the budget, I assume.
So all this is here is the, I think at the last meeting I had presented the cost of the retention stipends that we would be paying on the June 15th payroll. And so so the city had requested that we make the budget movements to account for that. And that's all this is just moving it between the lines, no additional cost to the division.
Okay. Do we need to approve that as a board?
I think it's just part of the consent agenda.
Okay.
So if you approve the consent agenda, you approve it.
All righty. Item 3.3, VHSL membership. Looks like this is our annual membership that we pay year after year. $2,005.50. Any questions on that? The next item, policy services agreement with the SBA. We do this every year. Scroll down to the bottom, please. I believe that's 2,000 something. $2,100 that we pay them for their service. Okay. Any questions on that?
Are those just legal services or any service?
That's the policy. That's really anything. It's not, well, some legal is covered, but if we get into some real detail case, then we have to go outside. But for the most part, from our needs, that 2,100 covers just about everything we do with them.
Mhm.
Of course, things like our board training are additional.
Hmm.
Item 3.5, school board meeting minutes from May 20th, 2021. Can we vote on these as a group, or are there any that we need to pull out?
You should vote on these as a group with the consent agenda. However, if any board member wants to vote differently, they can request to have it pulled.
Right. Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve items under the consent agenda 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Marshall. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Human Resources, policy updates. Dr. Sterling or Dr. Holloran, either one.
Thank you so much. I'll have Dr. Holloran do this policy update.
Yes, good evening. We have policies to share. Ms. Moore, the presentation, please. Great, thank you. On the first slide, it addresses the transgender student policies. House Bill 145 and Senate Bill 161. The Virginia Department of Education, due to that being enacted, has made available model policies to addressing the treatment of transgender students in public schools. They're requesting that school divisions or school boards shall adopt policies for their individual school divisions. And what's great about that is the school board has been provided with information and updates from VSBA to show examples of where all of those policies and what's included are currently policies that we currently have in the division, as well as on the following page, there are 45 policies that are up, I believe, for approval that were first readings at the last board meeting, and highlighted in red as notated in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide are the policies that we're going to vote on to hopefully approve that address the transgender treatment of students. So as we scroll through, Ms. Moore, it's kind of twofold what we're doing. We're hopefully seeking approval for the approval of those 45 revised policies, as well as highlighted in red, again, indicates where the treatment of transgender students are already addressed. So we do not need to, at this moment, create any new policies. There are just the 45 of them in order that shares a little bit of information about the policies. I believe the board members were presented with the updated policies already with Franklin City Schools on it and ready for posting to our website once they're approved. And then next to the last slide, I believe, Ms. Moore, I'll wait till you get there and everyone is reviewing all 45 of those. There should, there should be a box that will be coming up, right? If you can stop there, please, where it states additional policy codes that address the treatment of gender students. Those are policies, the four of those that we currently have that are not up for approval for tonight. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that we have those four additional ones that are currently in place to address that. And then I believe the telework one will be addressed later on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken. And those are the policies that are up for approval.
Dr. Holland, this is Jerry McCreary, Ward 6. It's kind of challenging to identify what changes. I mean, I've read through the model policies as suggested by the Virginia Department of Education. It's a little confusing as exactly how that will affect current policies of the Franklin schools. This is a stressful conversation for me to address. I think it's to me, the Commonwealth of Virginia is doing a large disservice to its citizens. To me, this is a political agenda coming from national and state levels. And I feel like I would recommend that any policy changes in regards to so-called transgender issue needs to be reviewed by the parents and citizens of the city of Franklin. I think this is too large an issue for just the school board to address, because I know a lot of people oppose a lot of the I would classify indoctrination that is behind this. I certainly agree that every student deserves respect and an education without harassment. But these policies, as presented by the Virginia Department of Education, go way beyond addressing those issues. I would challenge that it goes to the point of disagreeing with their viewpoints as being harassment. So my proposal to the board, I won't make a formal motion at the moment, but would be to consider presenting changes in regards to the issue to some kind of public hearing. Now, I'd appreciate other board members' views on this matter.
Can I provide a point of clarification if that's okay?
Yes.
Okay, just for clarification, the board, if you look at what's not highlighted in red,
Yes.
those were the items that were presented in general, if that makes sense, part of the May 2021 VSBA recommended just in general policy changes. But with the recent, House bill and Senate bill being passed, they were just making us aware, which is what I highlighted in red, just to say we don't need to change any of our policies to support the treatment of transgender students. It's just to highlight in red where we currently have policies of where those requirements or items that are recommended are already embedded in our current policies. And there should be a supporting document that was submitted. If not, we could provide that later. That kind of came from VSBA that kind of shows you where those items, correct, the one that's pulled up now. It kind of shows you some of the things that are noted in it, and then it shows you where our current policies kind of address whatever that mandate or recommendation is. And I just tried to make it a little simpler instead of creating a whole lot of charts, and figured that since most of those, other than the 4 that I added to the bottom of the presentation, are included in this document from VSBA, I just opted to just highlight it in red to make it aware. So my understanding is they're not requesting that we change our policies to address the treatment of transgender. They're just making us aware that the mandates and everything are embedded. But additional information can be provided as I learn more about this as well. So thank you for your feedback.
Dr. Holland, I think that's correct. And I went into this with kind of a negative view about it, but I have read everything that we're looking at. And it seems to me that what this is, the state law has already changed. That's not an option. We can't do anything about that. What this does is align our policies through the efforts of VSBA's advice to confirm or comply with state law. Dr. Sterling, you're shaking your head. Do you agree with that?
No, after completely reading it, that is exactly where I came from. And the state law changed because of the Supreme Court's decision. So this went all the way up and then they came back down. So it's going to be completely up to the board, but the policy has already changed at the state level. Now, if Mr. McQuarrie is asking for a public hearing for families to come out or parents to come out to have a voice, I think that is something that we could definitely arrange. However, it wouldn't change what is coming down from the state and what's already in our policy.
So what you're saying is it's set in stone.
It's
Basically.
there, right? If we don't even pass it, and let's just say someone comes after us legally, they have the state law to support them. We supersede our
even if
local
we-
law.
Well, it's set in stone only in as much as laws can be changed as well. But my experience is that certain laws come from the federal and state government, and that such as this, and a lot of residents that I know, I've talked with, they're not even aware of all these changes because this is not something that's really covered in the news, and they're not going to find out about it until it's actually enacted in the schools. So I do understand the comments that this is already law on the Virginia state level, but I still think parents deserve a right to speak out on it prior to this coming school year,
Place for the
or
parents.
to address it. Obviously, ultimately, it goes back to addressing it higher up, but I don't know. I just feel like the public deserves to be better aware of these policies.
I think the place for the parents to go to view or to express their opinion is to the legislature, not to us, because this is out of our control. The legislature has passed a law that we must follow, and these policies put us in compliance with state law, whether we agree or not. I mean, parents can come to Citizens Time and we would welcome them to do that, but we really have no choice in this one.
Now, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere in one of these readings that there was a public hearing in December for this legislation, and there were something like 9,000 or more comments or rebuttals. Yeah, 9,000 comments during the public comment period. So I hear what you're saying, Mr. McQuarrie. On the local level, a lot of parents don't know, and many things are done on state and national level that we find out after the fact. So I guess the question would be how best to present it so that the parents are aware. I guess that's what you're saying. Give the parents an opportunity to be aware of what the legislation is.
Yes, at very minimum, yes. Yes.
Dr. Holleran, this goes into effect July 1st. Is that correct?
It goes into effect, my understanding, I want to say as soon as we approve it, and I guess July 1st in a couple of weeks is once the board approve it. I mean, VSBA usually submit their recommendations, and then once we submit it and approved by the board, we upload it to our website.
Well, what I meant was the state law is effective July 1st. Is that your understanding? That's my understanding.
I will have to follow up on that, Mr. Holt.
Okay.
That might be noted in here.
Well, it says somewhere that should have had it in place at the beginning of the 2021 school year. 21-22 school year. So it has to be in place for next school year.
Mhm.
Correct.
And it is a sensitive issue. I understand that. It's a very
Mhm.
sensitive issue.
Well, to me, it's nonsense. It it's based on a lie, basically.
Mhm.
And people's feelings and emotions and a personal viewpoint, but it goes beyond. I feel like imposing these policies, we're just creating a new generation of neurotic individuals potentially. I don't see this as. To me, it's very extremely confusing and akin to indoctrination. I mean, this whole paragraph that I'm looking right now is nonsense. And I think it goes way beyond educating our children in a way that they can succeed in life.
Hmm.
It goes way beyond reading, writing, arithmetic. You know, this goes towards social engineering. And the more our public schools concede to these type of policies, you'll have more families leaving our public schools and pursuing private education, I believe. I just don't see that this reflects the whole of our society.
Mhm.
I think it's a very, very small minority. Not again, I'm going to reiterate that everyone deserves respect and access to education that addresses a way to succeed in life. But you know, to be self-sufficient but this kind of policies and legislation go way beyond that. So I would like to postpone. I would like to pull this section from this human resources for let's see, any votes that we need to address on section 4. I would like to exclude this as a separate matter and provide opportunity at the next public session to invite the public to residents of Franklin to speak out on, or to speak up about it, to address it with their viewpoints, and somehow to make them more aware, provide them an opportunity to be aware of these policies.
So would you put that in a specific motion?
Yeah, I'm struggling to know how to do that.
So I guess you would say I move that the VSBA policies or changes to VSBA policies, are you saying you want them tabled, or you want, because the vote is already positioned in the agenda to be voted on separately. It's not part of anything else.
Just need a point of clarification. If you vote on this tonight, you still can have the public hearing. But if you pull it tonight and you have the public hearing, it's not going to change the policies that are coming down for the recommendation from VSBA. So we're still going to be voting on the same policy. We won't be changing the language or anything.
Right,
So I
public
just wanna
hearing
make
will
sure-
not change that.
It's just prolonging the inevitable, but what you are requesting is a public voice from our parents and community that I can say, yes, we can do that. That's not a problem. If that's what the board directs me to do, that's not a problem.
Okay, you have to bear with me because I'm not used to making motions, but I make a motion that we table this vote until our second meeting in July. for a vote, in which meantime, and at that meeting, prior to a vote, we provide opportunity for public comment.
All right, do we have a second?
Well, just not really second, but if I remember correctly, tabling it, then that goes into the next official's term of board, because we start again July 1st, right?
Right.
So we actually wouldn't be able to vote on it until after board is reorganized. Right?
Well, the 3 board members who are reappointed, have been reappointed, will be appointed before July 1st. Our first meeting on July 1st is a reorganization meeting.
Right. So we have to do the chair again. We have to
We have to vote new chairs and officers and all that kind of thing.
so we wouldn't be able to even do anything if we tabled it tonight. We wouldn't be able to do anything with it until after July 1st or on July 1st.
Well,
No,
we
it
don't
would have to be
yeah,
after July 1st.
I think after tonight, we don't meet again until July 1st. I believe that's
Right.
When is our regular board meeting in July? Does anyone
It's
have
July
that?
15th.
July 15th, okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think Mrs. Phillips changed that we're gonna meet July 1st and then July 8th, or
right.
maybe not, and then July 15th as well.
Dr. Shelton, I do apologize. The July 15th is already a public hearing for the ESSA grant. So
Okay.
since there's already a public hearing scheduled, you can have 2.
Public hearing.
Yes, ma'am. You can you just do 2 items for one meeting.
Okay. But what I hear you saying is that even if we vote tonight, we could still have a public hearing on the 15th. Either way, a vote has to be done. Yay, either now or whenever our next meeting
Right.
is.
Yes, ma'am. A vote has to be taken.
Okay.
All right, we have Jerry's motion. Do we have an official second? All right, that motion dies for lack of a second. Do we have another motion? I'm afraid if we have a public hearing, I don't mind having a public hearing, but it's not going to change the way we vote because this is law. We have, if everybody comes and complains about it, we can't do a thing about it. They're complaining to the wrong people. They need to complain to the legislature.
Well, my point, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. But this goes back to the point that, for lack of a better word, grassroots. I mean, it depends as a city, what is the will of the people? And if the people are not really fully aware of these types of changes that are coming down, regardless if they're law or not, they're going to respond and they're going to address us first. They may be addressing the wrong body, governing body, and we can communicate that to them. But more than likely, we will be the first governing body to be addressed for anyone who opposes it. So.
And I think what I hear you saying is basically you just want the people to be aware of the legislation.
That's the primary. That's the primary. Speaking with constituents or representing families in Ward 6, I already know that they oppose these types of policies. Again, I understand Mr. Holt's recognition that this is already state law, but again, I would like to give our parents and residents, however, even though if it's belated, opportunity to speak up on something that a lot of them are just going to now be more fully aware of what's being presented and dictated pretty much. The most I could hope for is that the public becomes more aware, that they can then in turn address, their legislatures on the state level and make changes further. I understand it's a lot of this already comes from the Supreme Court, but all in all, I mean, our society is the people that are ultimately the deciders. And I feel like a lot of this has come from it's not well known. It's kind of lived somewhat covertly. A lot of distractions this past year, for one thing.
Do we have a motion?
Well, I would make a motion that we vote on 4.1 with adding a public hearing to make the families and the city aware of the legislation, because it will have an impact.
So you're not voting to approve the policy, you're voting to have a public hearing, correct?
No, I'm making a motion that we vote on 4.1 tonight and also have the public hearing as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Marshall. We have a motion and a second to approve policies updates under 4.1 plus hold a public hearing. Any discussion?
I intend to oppose the motion. I'm all for a public hearing, but as stated prior, I would prefer public hearing prior to a vote. So I'm just stating my intention.
Okay. Well, the motion has the public hearing and the policy. All right, all in favor signify by saying, let's move by ward.
Oh,
Ward
wait, Bob.
Okay.
Wait, Mr. Do we need two motions? Do we need a motion to vote on the policy and a motion for the public hearing?
I think that would be wise considering Jerry's last comment. So do you want to withdraw your first motion?
I withdraw my first motion. So I move that 4.1 be divided into two motions. That we vote on the policy updates and then with, I guess, an addendum for a public hearing.
All right, let's do this. The first
Motion one, the policy update.
Okay, let's do that one and then we'll come back to the public hearing. Okay. All in favor of the motion to approve policies under 4.1 signify by saying aye. Ward 1 is me and I'll vote yes. Ward 2 is not here. Ward 3. Tanya?
Yes. Ward 3, yes.
Okay. Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6. Jerry, that's no. I assume.
No.
Okay. So that motion carries. Now, second motion to hold a public hearing.
I move that we hold a public hearing to make the community aware of the policy updates.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Again, moving by ward, I'm Ward 1, I'll vote no. Ward 2 is not here. Ward 3,
No.
Tanya votes no. Ward 4,
No.
Rochelle, no. Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 noes and 2 yeses, it looks to me like. So that is not approved. Moving on to 4.2, federal update.
For updates, we have one slide, just so we can provide you with a status update on the CARES Act funding. So we have ESSA 1-2, both of ESSA 1s, which includes the formula as well as the set aside. Then we have ESSA 2 and ESSA 3. I just want to remind you again of the period of performance, the awarded amount column, the remaining funding as of June 10th. This past week, we had payroll and other items to come through, so I'm certain that that amount has been encumbered some in all the areas. And then off to the right-hand side, you'll see that the following federal grants are receiving final review now from Dr. Sterling, titles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And those federal grant applications are due no later than July 1. And if you can recall, on April 1st, each program manager did present to you the plans for requesting funding for the upcoming funding cycle. Any questions about the funding? Just wanted to make you aware of the available balances, encumberment, and we're spending the funding. And the great news is, and I think Mr. Ryder can chime in, I believe we received notification that we can now spend the funding all at once and not have to spend ESSA 1, I believe, before ESSA 3 and all of that. So that's great news that we received from the Virginia Department of Education. Is that correct, Mr. Ryder?
Correct, they can be spent concurrently.
That's great news. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Shall we go to telework policy?
That's me also. There's a request for the board to take a look at establishing a telework policy. My understanding is we do not currently have an actual policy in place that addresses teleworking. And this is, I believe, a first read for you to take a look at the policy. And then I believe there's another page with a sample possible application as to what that process would look like and what a staff member would complete for approval.
We're asking for a first read and approval.
And approval. Thank you, Dr. Sterling, for that correction.
I think it's good that we've written that policy and we will take a second look at it at our next meeting, or perhaps the 15th, and make a decision on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Finance and operations, I guess, Mr. Ryder.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holt. First up for the finance and operations is the vouchers for payment for May. I've reviewed that a couple of times. There's nothing really unusual in there. I'm looking at it on my screen as well. Those are all just your normal bills for May. You'll probably see an accelerated amount of bills for June because we are working frantically to close out all open purchase orders within the next week. So you'll see, June's payments spike up a little bit, but that's completely normal for this time of year. So if anybody has any questions. All right.
If there are no questions, we'll move to your financial report.
All right. So this financial report is, so ordinarily, I would present the prior month's financials at this meeting, but I already presented the May ones at the last meeting. This particular meeting, even though the month isn't over yet, I wanted to present to you folks, where are we with, year to date, and, the most up-to-date projection for the year-end results. So in July, we wait for year-end invoices to arrive from vendors, and then we push those expenses back into the prior fiscal year to be in accordance with modified accrual basis accounting. And so for that reason, we usually don't publish financials again until the first board meeting in August, when I have a very, almost, the only difference is if the auditors find something, but those would probably be the final ones for fiscal year 21. So on the next slide, this is the all-important Fund 10, the general fund. On the next slide. There she is. Okay. A little bit more. There we go. Okay, so the June year-to-date June 15th in red. Is there any? Is this my screen, or because that can does everybody see the full?
Yes.
Okay, so year-to-date June 15th. I have it on my right, the screen on my right, and I can see the great big thing. So the June 15th, 2021. That's where we're at right now. We have received all of the city appropriation for the year, all of our regular revenues, most of the state funding. I'm expecting about another $412,000 to come in. Those usually come in 2 payments throughout the month, and this has the June 15th payment already entered. This is the projection of about where we're going to end up. At the bottom there, the $125,938, that is the deficit that we were supposed to arrive at, with the one exception of one purchase order for one project that we had to pull out because we will not be able to incur that cost in fiscal year 21, and that is for the SP Morton bathroom project. If you all recall, we were awarded the rollover funds in January. So we're already 7 months into our fiscal year. February, March, we're getting the architects arranged. And then March and April, the architects are actually doing the project. So it was finally, and then they had to put it out to bid. We had to wait 30 days for the bidders to bid. So the May 20 board meeting was when we actually selected the vendor and told them, you have to start, but you can't start until the kids are out of school. So this project, it would ordinarily, I guess, be a summer project, which would run through July and August. But our problem is we need to spend our operating funds in fiscal year 2021. So there's just no way we could get this thing done by June 30th. Therefore, instead of having the $703,000 deficit we're supposed to have, it's only going to be about 126,000. And so myself, Dr. Sterling, board chair and vice chair, will be meeting with the city council very quickly, like next week, to inform them of that, and that we have issued the purchase order. The bid was bid. It was bid. The purchase order was issued. So we have to ask for that rollover money very quickly, because that project is going to be done by August 24th. So the new school year, the kids will have all their touchless toilets and bathrooms and sinks and everything ready to go. But everything else, we're going to be on target. The textbook fund, you know, it's good news. I mean, we started out with $250,000. We're going to actually have more because we could not get the vendor to get the science adoption materials in before June 30th. So this fund rolls over every year by itself. It stands alone. So whatever money comes in, it stays there until we spend it. And so I think it's about $168,000 will come in July or August or something like that. And that'll kick that balance down to a much more reasonable figure. The next one is, of course, our nutrition program. And this is my best estimate there for just the last payroll of June. And June we're still serving meals. So we actually, again, we're going to have a little bit of a increase in bank balance. So we're definitely going to have an excess spending plan for next year. Last year, the only reason the state didn't, make us do one is because of COVID. But we'll probably have to do it again this year. And so, this is the grants. And this is the grants, and it looks very disturbing. I think way over to the right, why aren't we spending all this money? And this is actually a problem I'm going to correct in the next fiscal year. The traditional thing that we've been doing is once we get a grant approved and it goes into something called the Omega system, what we usually do is we adjust our revenue and our expenses. We increase them by the amount of the grant, right? Well, inside that $6.3 million is $2.5 million of CARES funding we didn't spend and we're not going to spend. So, it's really overstated. So I have already begun a very meticulous, detailed analysis of the grants, and we're only going to budget what we're going to use in the next fiscal year. Even though for example, the next one's 5.8, right? We're not spending all that next year. So I'm not going to add $5.8 million to next year's budget when that amendment comes through. And for that reason, I've even told the city treasurer that they might not need to hold a public hearing because, we might only spend 2 million of the 5. So it's not going to adjust their budget by more than 1%. So these figures all the way over to the right, you don't need to be worried about those variances. So, the grants will be spent eventually. And then this is just the overall summation of our projection. So the projected overall division of $376,000 negative, that's true. 126 of it is in the operating fund. The rest is in the grants. And remember, the grants, we always spend first and then we get the reimbursement. So you always have the expense exceeding the revenue. Revenue always lags the expense. Okay. Do we have any questions on the financial statements?
A lot of good work, Mr. Ryder. It's been a challenging year with multiple funds coming in and out, different time frames, different cutoff periods. Thank you for you and your staff for your effort on that. Any questions for Mr. Ryder? Okay, 5 point, go ahead.
5.3, oh, there was an attachment. Okay, Tammy. Are we going to cover the request? Oh, there. As explained in the financials, we just couldn't get the bathroom project done with the operating funds that we needed to by June 30th. So it's only one purchase order. It's to A.R. Chesson for the whole bathroom project, and we'll be asking for this full amount from the city as a rollover that will be expended by August 24th. August 24th is a substantial completion date for that project. Okay. The last thing is the ESSER 3 Stream 5 review.
Do we have to make a motion?
Oh.
I'll approve it.
Yes, ma'am, to request that rollover be spent directly to that. Yes.
Would you like to make that motion, Dr. Shelton?
I move to approve the request for the SPM bathroom renovation costs to be spent in the school year 2021, 2022.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. This. So when we discussed the requirement for the public hearing for the ESSER 3 funds, it is no doubt that the school division has to hold a public hearing. But depending on how much is going to be budgeted for the next year, the city might not need to hold a public hearing. But the mechanics of how this works is we hold our public hearing, we create our budget amendment, and then we send the budget amendment to the city, and then they decide whether they're going to hold their own public hearing. So like Mr. Holt had alluded to earlier, I think July 1st is going to be the reorganization meeting. So
Correct.
the July 15th, I believe this is a request to have the public hearing at a July 15th board meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion to hold a public hearing for that purpose on July 15th?
I move to hold the public hearing for the ESSER 3 on July 15th.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Departmental review, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ms. Burkhalter, our Chief Academic Officer.
Good evening, school board members, Superintendent Sterling, and colleagues. In the spring, you all had approved for us to have summer school utilizing Title I funds because the 21st Century Grant ended in April. So we wanted to provide you an update of the specifics because we gave you a preliminary framework with staffing in our budget for what we would be doing. So we wanted to start out by providing you our learning targets. So for kindergarten through second grade, we say by the end of summer school, students in K through 2 will make measurable growth in reading, specifically in the area of phonemic awareness, as measured by completing a pre and post Haggerty performance assessment independently with 80% accuracy. So if you look at our historical data over the last 3 years, and as Dr. Sterling has been emphasizing to the community at whole, for K through 2, we want to focus on teaching them to learn to read. And one of the largest area gaps that we have in them not being able to read on grade level by the time they're in 3rd grade is that phonemic awareness. So Ms. Burkhalter, what do you mean when you say phonemic awareness? It's where we're looking at the smallest unit of sound so that a child should be able to hear. So when the teacher says cat, they should be able to hear the k, the a, and the t when the teacher says that, and they're not able to do that right now, so that they can move on to be able to work on phonological awareness, where then they can take words and break them up in segments so that they can rhyme or do syllables. For 3rd through 5th grade, the learning target is by the end of summer school, students will make measurable growth of 10 to 15 points as measured by completing a release SOL test independently. Next, Ms. Moore. For our learning targets for math for K through 2, by the end of summer school, students in K through 2 will make measurable growth in math as measured by completing a pre and post assessment independently with 80% accuracy. Teachers started working on those pre and post assessments and created those today. For 3rd through 5th grade, by the end of summer school, students will make measurable growth of 10 to 15 points as measured by completing a release SOL test independently. Then for Joseph P. King Jr. Middle School, as you know, they started their summer school this year 3 weeks ago when they finished testing, because unlike the elementary school, who has multiple types of assessments going on at the end of the year, from PALS assessments to pre-screening for pre-K, in addition to SOLs, JPK only had their SOLs. So as soon as they finished SOLs, they started accelerating the learning using the data, the SOL data from Pearson's for each student with their gap areas by SOL strand. So by the end of summer school, students will show measurable growth in reading with 80% accuracy to be considered as mastery for that specific strand. Resources such as SOL books, small groups, and Achieve 3000 will be utilized for students to work towards mastery. Those assessments will be created in performance assessment. For math, grades 6 through 8, by the end of summer school, the students will complete at least 2 resources per strand with 80% accuracy to be considered as mastery for that specific strand. So for each school, SP Morton and JPK, they had to put each student's data in the spreadsheet, tier them in addition to their attendance in order for us to target our most vulnerable population for summer school. Next, Mrs. Moore. So summer school for kindergarten through 2nd grade is new to Franklin City Public Schools under the leadership of Dr. Sterling. So we knew we needed professional development for them. In addition to that, we knew we needed to target phonemic awareness specifically and embed that into the schedule. So teachers have started professional development after school this week, and they finished it this week utilizing Haggerty, which is a supplemental material that has specific phonemic awareness activities. So we have kindergarten through 8th grade. Even though we did the training with kindergarten through 5th, we put through 8th grade because we also have our special education students who will be attending summer school, and some of them may need to meet that per their IEP goals. There will be a focus on reading and math at both schools in order to prepare the teachers for the intense intervention. So they have a total of 2 professional days that has been scattered out throughout the week, and they finished today. Next, Mrs. Moore. So here is this was the original professional development schedule. We tweaked it in order to give them, we gave them the option. Do you want to have this schedule as it is, or do you want to tweak it, have a whole day on Thursday, June 17th, what they did for today? So this allows them to have Friday on their own in addition to the weekend before starting on Monday. Next, Ms. Moore. So for exceptional education, professional development, Mrs. Ricks has ordered some STEM kits so that we can start building on the STEM career and explorations beginning at the elementary level. And so this summer we'll actually kind of, I guess, experiment with them, as you will say. So the special education students will do 1 STEM activity. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen with the arrows, those are the kits that they will be utilizing around those themes, and they'll get 1 of those. So kindergarten through 2nd will do 1 STEM activity during summer school on exploring crystal gardening. 3rd through 4th grade students will do 1 exploring the solar system, and 5th grade students will do 1 STEM activity on exploring the scientific lab. And Mrs. Ricks will provide this professional development with them. The kits are here and ready to go and assemble. So we wanted to provide you an update of the schedule. So after you preliminary did the approval for the tentative SOL summer program, I attended a meeting, it's the CERN meeting with William and Mary, and it's where divisions that have 10,000 or less students come together for instruction and talk about what we're gonna do and the rationale. And so after I provided that feedback to Dr. Sterling with all of the information that the divisions had put in the spreadsheet, we revised ours to cut it down from 4 weeks to 3 weeks because as we had been discussing, our students and teachers have been going over the last year since March 16th. and we don't want to burn them out. We know we need to refresh them, but we also want to target our most vulnerable learners by educating the whole child. We need to get them ready to come back in for the academics, but before we can do that, we need to get them ready to come back in social and emotionally. So we have extended the summer school day for SP Morton and JPK. Instead of from 8 to 12, we will be going from 8 to 2. They will spend half their day in reading and math and the other half in structured and unstructured activities with the resource teachers. So we have them doing art, music, and physical education in addition to recess so they can have that unstructured time. Then for JPK, we have their schedule. And again, they'll be spending half of their day in reading and half of their day in math so that they can have the full time of an hour and a half for each academic area, because they'll still essentially be utilizing a 4x4 model. Are there any questions with the summer school final plan?
It's not a question, just a comment. Glad to see that you all added music and art and PE to help offset some of the academics.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
Dr. Sterling.
I'm sorry, she stepped away to use the restroom. Would you like for me to do her report?
Okay.
Okay. For the report of the superintendent for today, June 17th, we definitely wanted to highlight some of the things that's going on. Juneteenth has been made a National Independence Day, and the superintendent is recommending to the board that Friday, June 18th, 2021, be considered a virtual day for all staff. So she's requesting approval to have all staff work virtually tomorrow, June 18th.
So I have the best executive secretary. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve Juneteenth?
Observation. Yes.
So they're still working, but they're working virtually. Is that what that is?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're working virtually on that day instead of coming into the office, right?
Correct. And since the year is closing out, most of all the students and everything's closed out anyway. So this is really a day for them.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the graduation celebrations at SP Morton. SP Morton presented their 5th grade promotion video, which you can find on YouTube as well. We're very excited and we're looking for those rising 6th graders to go to JP King Middle School. Next, you have the graduation celebrations of JP King Middle School. Our rising 8th graders, the promotion ceremony was absolutely beautiful. Here are the pictures. And we want to congratulate our rising 9th graders that will be in high school in the fall. And culminating their career in Franklin City Public Schools, you have Franklin high school graduates. They had a beautiful ceremony, and also it is on Facebook and YouTube. And if you have not seen it, please make certain that you view that video. We are very excited for our future college and career students that are moving on from Franklin City Public Schools. And this was also their t-shirt day. They had an outdoor fun day. And as you can see, they were spelling out 21. And Dairy Queen provided blizzards to them. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time. The central office also pitched in and purchased their straight out of quarantine senior shirts that they have that you can see right here, and a celebration gathering at Busch Gardens. And they had a wonderful time. And we want to make certain we make this an annual event for our seniors.
I did see the banners downtown again this year. That looks great.
Yes, we want to thank our community again for coming together, so supporting our banners and our yard signs. This is something that our entire community comes in and pitches in to support our graduates. This right here is our summer feeding schedule. As you know, we are committed to making certain that no child is hungry, and our summer feeding schedule will be breakfast from 7:30 to 9 and lunch from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. However, our parents and our students will have to come to our facilities to receive those meals. They can eat it there or take it home. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for that sterling report. Item 8.1, business by school board members. Anyone have anything? Important dates to remember. I guess our next meeting is July the 1st. I guess the meeting after that is the 15th. Is that correct? Didn't we talk about the 8th or something? Here we go. We have master board training a week from tomorrow, mandatory, of course. Our organization meeting on the 1st, and our next meeting on July the 15th. Anything, other dates that you're aware of? Minutes. We have minutes for June the 10th and June the 3rd to review. We will vote on those at our next meeting. Anything else? Hearing none, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Thank you all. See you soon. Dr. Sterling, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be
Yeah.
here.
All right,
Take
thank
care,
you.
everyone.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good evening.
Good evening.